carbon monoxide. It is a gas that can't be smelled, tasted, or seen, and virtually all industries count carbon monoxide among their potential hazards. It may arise unexpectedly as the result of incomplete combustion of carbonaceous material, or carbon monoxide, abbreviated CO, may be generated as a normally occurring byproduct of decomposition. The incidence of carbon monoxide poisoning is unusually high in automobile maintenance garages, foundries, blast furnaces, and certain chemical processes where it is used as a base chemical or generated as a waste product. CO is also a threat in non-industrial settings. For example, many people have died when exposed to high concentrations of carbon monoxide gas from automobile exhaust and from using kerosene and wood-burning stoves in poorly ventilated rooms. In fact, CO is one of the most common chemical killers both in industry and the home. As early as 1970, it was estimated by the National Safety Council that 1,600 people died from CO poisoning, and at least 10,000 others suffer each year from exposure to the debilitating effects of CO. Many cases, both fatal and non-fatal, remain unreported or incorrectly diagnosed. Symptoms of CO poisoning may be easily confused with the onset of a cold, flu, or other common disorders. In addition, CO aggravates other conditions, such as heart and respiratory problems. One of the reasons why CO is such a severe hazard is that, next to carbon dioxide, it is the single most frequently encountered contaminant in polluted atmospheres. The chemical characteristics of CO also contribute greatly to its potentially lethal effects. By itself, carbon monoxide is not detectable by sight or smell, since it has neither color nor odor. Often the physical symptoms of CO are barely noticed by the victim, and by the time the symptoms become pronounced, the victim is not able to recognize the danger or to form coherent plans for escape. An uncalculated danger is a situation in which the amount of CO produced is generally negligible. Small amounts of CO can build up to a harmful level in a situation generally not recognized as a potential danger, such as warehouses on extremely cold days where doors are kept closed and where gas forklifts are used. Extra caution must be exercised to monitor the amount of CO that is being generated and the adequacy of the ventilation to cope with that level. Not only must people be able to recognize operations which produce CO, they must be able to identify symptoms of CO poisoning to take appropriate action. CO enters the body through the respiratory system, interfering with the assimilation and the ultimate use of oxygen by the body. Primarily, CO affects the central nervous and the cardiovascular systems. The central nervous system is affected mainly in acute exposures, the cardiovascular system in chronic exposures. The brain is the first organ affected by CO exposures, usually in the form of a headache. Increased exposure can cause dizziness, nausea, and unconsciousness. If the exposure is not too great, complete recovery can be expected. Also, as the exposure becomes increasingly severe, the brain becomes incapable of monitoring the body's functions, resulting in death. There is a zone of exposure between these two extremes in which death will not result, but which permanent cell destruction is certain. This cell destruction may manifest itself in the form of permanent psychosis, paralysis, cardiac disturbance, loss of mental powers, or loss of vision. 2 stages of acute poisoning have been identified. The first includes pressure in the head, a band-like constriction or throbbing, weak knees, confusion, headache, roaring in the ears, and nausea. In the second stage, the weakness and confusion increase. The victim becomes incapable of thinking clearly or of making decisions and acting on them. Even if an escape route is available and obvious, the victim becomes unable to take it. As the headache and dizziness worsen, a drunken-like stupor takes over, so that the victim becomes soothed, drowsy, and indifferent to danger. Advanced symptoms of CO's acute effect on the central nervous system are the legs begin to feel very heavy. Loss of consciousness, vomiting, and sometimes general muscular contractions follow shortly after, and finally death. The hazards of carbon monoxide can be kept under control by knowing what concentrations in the air are considered acceptable and maintaining the atmosphere within the limits. Because CO gives no warning of its presence, it is vital that the work atmosphere be monitored by instruments designed specifically for the detection of CO. The most common hazard of CO is poisoning. However, if CO forms a mixture with air within its explosive limits, it may present a serious fire and explosion hazard as well. Monitoring instruments have been developed for detecting CO. These will give warning when certain concentrations of carbon monoxide reach a predetermined level. The devices will then shut off electrical equipment and/or increase mechanical ventilation. All electrical circuits in use where carbon monoxide is likely to be present should be examined periodically. One of the best methods of providing protection against CO poisoning is to monitor the area continuously. This involves placing CO monitors at various locations around the job site. If this method is used, it is important to remember that various types of monitors may perform differently with variations in environment. Ventilation will reduce the amount of CO to which workers are exposed by removing the gas or diluting it to a lower concentration in the atmosphere. For example, in warm weather, doors and windows may simply be left open. In cold weather, enclosed operations that produce CO may be provided with exhaust fans installed to carry away the gas. Flexible exhaust ducts should be attached to the exhaust pipes of equipment and vehicles to remove CO from the workplace. Finally, catalytic devices may be installed on internal combustion engines to lower their emissions of CO. These devices should be inspected and maintained in good operating condition. By increasing the efficiency of the equipment and producing adequate ventilation, the formation of CO is greatly reduced. Another way to reduce CO exposure is to prevent its formation. Using battery or electrical operated equipment is one way to do this. Even when control measures have been conscientiously observed, it is possible for a worker to be excessively exposed to carbon monoxide. When accidental leaks occur, the individual must be immediately removed from the location of exposure to fresh air. If breathing is stopped, cardiopulmonary resuscitation should be administered by a trained and fully qualified individual until normal breathing has resumed. Oxygen or artificial respiration must be administered as quickly as possible. Even if the exposure does not appear to have been severe, pure oxygen is the preferred treatment. To aid the victim's circulation, the body should be inclined at a slight angle, with the head lower than the feet. Individuals who work in areas, such as near a blast furnace, where CO is a hazard, should be trained in the proper emergency procedures. Smokers and people with cardiovascular diseases are at a higher risk from CO poisoning. Because of this, these people may not be protected completely by OSHA's PEL of 50 parts per million. Proper storage and use of equipment will help to control both the health and the safety hazards of CO. Containers of CO should carry a warning label indicating the contents and the nature of the danger. The label should make it clear that the gas is colorless and odorless, and that it can be fatal if inhaled. It should also state that CO can be explosive in high concentrations with air. Each container in which CO is stored should be examined for leaks when it is filled. If a cylinder begins to leak, the area should be ventilated and the leak stopped if possible. If the leak cannot be stopped, the cylinder should be removed to the open air and repaired or allowed to empty. Using safe work habits when involved with carbon monoxide will decrease the risk of exposure to its hazards. An intelligent, responsible approach to the problem, one that includes both hazard recognition and hazard control, will help minimize these hazards.
A very important piece of equipment in the warehouse and material handling areas is the electric pallet jack. It's an economical and versatile unit designed to move stacks of materials from one place to another safely and without injury or product damage. Because it's easy to use and provides such durable service, It's natural to take them for granted, but there are basic safety rules and operating procedures required when using this type of equipment. Be sure to follow your organization's policies and procedures when using or operating this type of equipment. Each electric pallet jack manufacturer has different operating procedures and safety rules, so be sure to read and understand the rules for each type of equipment used. Let's begin with a basic understanding of the electric pallet jack. Keep in mind each manufacturer's vehicle may be slightly different than the ones we use in our demonstration, but the basic principles apply to most equipment. The vehicle itself is composed of directional and speed control levers, horn, lift and lower, and high-speed controls, AT-bar support handle, battery, pallet forks for the load wheels and tires, a skid runner, rider platform, drive unit cover and steering, and brake control handles. You'll become familiar with all the controls and levers through on-the-job training by your supervisor and as you gain experience with this equipment. It's important to know and understand the operating rules, maintenance procedures, and all the safety rules used with this type of equipment. Take a look at the data plate on your specific vehicle. It will provide some specific data about the vehicle, such as serial number, make, model, but more importantly, it will provide the maximum safe load capacity of the vehicle. Never exceed the safe lifting capacity of the vehicle at any time. Let's briefly look at some basic operating rules for this type of equipment. Number 1, know your equipment. Do not operate the equipment until you have been trained and authorized by your company. Read all warnings and instructions in the operator's manual, the information on the vehicle's data plate, and other areas. If your vehicle is found to be in need of repair, defective, or in any way unsafe to operate, the vehicle should be taken out of services until it has been restored to safe operating condition. Number 2, no riders. Passengers are not allowed to ride on this type of equipment. Be sure you never permit anyone to stand in the area where the load is being positioned or deposited, as foot injuries can easily occur. Number 3, make sure your loads are stable and are not stacked too high. Loose or unstable loads can fall and cause serious injury. Use special care when handling long, high or wide loads to avoid losing the load, striking bystanders, or tipping the vehicle. Carry the load flush against the load stop. Number 4, center your load. Before lifting, be sure loads are centered and forks are completely under the load. Of course, never overload the vehicle. Do not hit a bump or anything with the ends of your forks, as this can damage the vehicle. Never lift a load with only one fork engaged. Number 5, keep the load low to the floor. Travel with the load or lifting mechanism low to keep the center of gravity low, but make sure the load is lifted high enough to ensure adequate floor clearance. Never lift or lower the load while the vehicle is in motion. Number 6, avoid sudden movement. Start, stop, travel, steer, and brake smoothly. Use special care when traveling without the load, as the risk of overturning this vehicle is greater when unloaded. Number 7, exercise caution on ramps and inclines. Travel slowly and do not angle or turn on ramps. Always travel with the load downhill when using pallet jacks. Be extremely cautious when operating the vehicle near the edge of a loading dock or ramp. Number 8, secure bridge plates. Drive carefully and slowly across dock boards and bridge plates. Never exceed these dock boards or bridge plates' rated capacity and make sure they are secured before driving on these plates. Number 9, do not operate this equipment with greasy hands or shoes. It's too easy to slip off the controls and create an unsafe condition. Number 10, come to a complete stop before changing directions. Number 11, continuing to operate either the drive or hydraulic controls in a situation where the truck or load will not move will cause damage to the electric motor. Number 12, do not push extra loads or other pallet jacks. Pushing another vehicle or extra loads is damaging to the vehicle's working parts. Never allow your vehicle to be pushed or towed by another vehicle. Should a truck become disabled and require moving, notify management for the proper procedures. Number 13, when traveling, keep your hands, feet, and other body parts inside the running lines of the vehicle. Always look in the direction of travel and keep a clear view of the path of travel. When visibility is impaired, operate the vehicle with the opposite end in the travel direction and use caution. Be careful of drive-end swing when turning while operating the vehicle in reverse. This could result in damage to material or equipment, specifically to the drive end of your vehicle. Another very important safety tip is to keep your feet away from the front skirt and rider platform when maneuvering the vehicle. Number 14. Before entering trucks or trailers, be certain the brakes on the truck or trailer are applied and the wheel chocks are in place. If trailers are not coupled to a tractor, supports may be needed to prevent upending or corner dipping of the trailer. Inspect the flooring of trucks, trailers, and rail cars for breaks and weaknesses before driving into them. Make sure you know the weight of the load and vehicle compared to the maximum load rating of the floor onto which you are driving. Number 15. When approaching cross aisles, slow down, sound your horn, and if vision is obstructed, keep to the right side. Operate the truck under all conditions at a speed that will permit it to be brought to a stop in a safe manner. Of course, yield the right-of-way to all pedestrians. Number 16. When parking your vehicle for an extended period of time, be sure the lifting mechanism is lowered, controls are placed in neutral, and the brake is applied. Shut off the power and disconnect the battery connection. Keep your vehicle clear of exits and access to stairs and fire equipment, and don't block aisles. Number 17. Speeding. Electric pallet jacks don't have speedometers. Generally, the rule of thumb is to go slow. If you're going fast and have to make a sudden stop, you can be thrown off the vehicle. The vehicle appears to be lightweight. However, when you're operating the vehicle, it has a tremendous amount of force and weight, and if you run into a person or stationary object or another piece of moving equipment, the damage and injuries can be quite substantial. Don't speed. Go slow and be prepared to stop. On some electric pallet jacks, they have several safety features you should look for and become familiar with for safety. A reversing switch may be located on the T-bar. This reversing switch is provided to protect the operator from being pinned between the truck and an immovable object. When pushed, this button will reverse the direction of the truck away from the operator whenever the steering arm is in the operating position. Many models have an automatic brake designed to stop the vehicle when the handle is moved to a completely vertical position or a completely horizontal position. If you're operating a walk-only type vehicle, then no one should ever ride on this type of vehicle. They have special features and are not designed for riders or passengers. Each manufactured vehicle has special features and requirements, and these basic safety tips may or may not apply to your equipment. Use the manufacturer's safety recommendations, operating instructions, and other information as the basis for operating your vehicle safely.
What's the most important job in a warehouse? The first thing that comes to most people's mind is to get the job done. Working in a warehouse environment means you have to hustle. You have to move materials, merchandise, and 1,000 other things. It's a big job and a big responsibility. What about safety? That's of primary importance, and safety means you have to use good judgment and common sense on every job you do. Safety is a responsibility that each and every employee has as a condition of employment. Safety takes an effort on everyone's part. Everyone in the facility must exercise caution and responsibility because each and every person's safety in the warehouse depends upon the cooperation of all persons. Let's take safety responsibility one step further. One of the most common complaints in any warehousing environment is forklifts. Forklift operators drive too fast. They don't pay attention to anyone walking nearby. They just don't seem to care about other people. All these things may be true to a certain degree depending upon the professionalism of the forklift operators. However, if you were to take a poll of all the forklift operators, here's what they would complain about. People walk in front of us without looking or watching where they're going. Or, people don't consider that we can't always see around corners, and when we honk our horns, no one pays attention to us. So you see, there are two sides to every story. The moral of the story is simply this. Everyone has a responsibility to work and act safely in every job, every day, and it does take effort on everyone's part. Let's take a few minutes to discuss some basic rules that apply to both equipment operators and warehouse personnel. The emphasis is not who's to blame or who's wrong, but on safety. Everyone's safety. Basically, forklift operator rules generally call for pedestrians to have the right-of-way. But forklift operators don't always see pedestrians until it's too late. Common sense and courtesy would have the pedestrians stand aside and give the right-of-way to forklifts. It's easier for a pedestrian to stop than it is for equipment operators. It's just like a pedestrian in a crosswalk on a street. Sure, you have the right-of-way, but that doesn't do you any good if a car runs you over in the crosswalk. When you see a forklift or equipment operator driving backwards, be watchful. The driver may have a blind side and may not be able to see you. If you're not sure the operator sees you, make sure you alert the operator that you're close by. If the equipment is being operated with forks forward, whether it's loaded or empty, stay completely clear of the vehicle. The operator's vision will be obstructed by the mast and the load. What we're doing is simply taking some basic common sense and applying them to safety. Safety for equipment operators and safety for pedestrians who happen to work around moving machinery. Remember, we said it was everyone's responsibility? Safety is a team effort. Fairly simple stuff, such as not standing behind a pallet while the forklift or pallet jack is picking it up. You can never tell when that load may fall or the truck may push the load into you. Certainly, no one would ever walk under or near a raised load. The same safety rules applies to any load carried by a forklift. If the forklift stops suddenly, the load could fall, and if you're in the way, you get clobbered. How about opening truck and trailer doors? Is there ever a problem with a load falling out? Of course there is. Always stand clear and open the doors slowly, as loads inside trucks can shift and cause the load to fall out when the doors are opened. Shipping and receiving docks are very busy places. A lot of work going on, and if you don't belong there, stay away from these areas. If you happen to work in shipping and receiving, you've got to pay extra attention to what's going on all the time. Forklifts and corners or intersections seem to be a problem. Forklift operators should honk their horns when going around corners or aisles to alert anyone that may be working there. Pedestrians or people working should also be alert for forklift operators because forklift operators can't always see or hear someone standing around the corner. It takes both the pedestrian and the forklift operator to prevent accidents and injuries. How about walking through doorways, particularly office doors that open into warehouse traffic aisles? People have a tendency to believe that there's nothing on the other side of the door, but there may be someone or something on the other side. Watch out when walking through doors. Make sure forklift equipment or others are not traveling on the other side. Let's say you're working on one side of a rack and the forklift is on the other side, putting a load in the rack. The best advice is to move away until the forklift has set the load on the rack. The reason for this is the load could hit a pallet or other load on your side of the rack, causing merchandise or other materials to fall directly on you. Don't take the chance. Stand away until the forklift has completed the load. A forklift or equipment operator must never drive up to a pedestrian standing near a wall or other fixed object. Forklift operators know that rule. But pedestrians should also notice what's going on and never get into a situation where you're between a forklift and a wall. Give forklifts and other equipment plenty of space. It's quite easy for a foot to slip off a brake or clutch, or for a hand to hit the wrong lever. No one is perfect, so you have to see what could possibly happen, then take the action to prevent an injury if something goes wrong. How about the electric truck that's supposed to stop when the operator steps off the deadman switch or the spring-loaded platform? Does the truck always stop? No. If the deadman switch is defective, the truck can keep rolling. Don't take the chance that the truck will always stop. How about combustion engines that are parked, but the engine is still running? This shouldn't happen even if it's only going to be for a few minutes and only if the parking brake works. Stay clear. Forklift operators must inspect their vehicle every shift for deficiencies, and if the parking brake doesn't work, then get it repaired before it's used. Pedestrians should never assume the brake works. Stay away from the rear and front of vehicles when their engines are running. No matter what type of equipment you're using, electric, combustion engine, manual pallet jacks, or walkie stackers, it's up to each and every individual, not just equipment operators, but every single individual in the organization to accept the responsibility for safety. Don't rely upon the other person for your safety. Take an active approach to safety by thinking about safety on the job. Look for ways to prevent injuries and expect the unexpected. In a warehousing environment, there's just too much going on to not think about safety. Think about your hands and how to prevent those minor injuries from scrapes, cuts, and splinters from mishandling pallets and other materials. Watch where you walk. Most slips and falls are caused by people not watching where they're going. Pick up paper, cardboard, string, banding materials, even if it's not in your department. If you see water on the floor, report it immediately. Safety means good housekeeping. Think about safety when you're handling batteries or battery charging equipment. Think about improperly stacked materials or how they can fall and cause injury. Think about flammable and combustible materials and how fires can completely devastate a building and the people in it. Don't block exits or exit doors. Learn where fire extinguishers are located and how to use them in case of an emergency. Think about reporting all minor injuries, even if they don't require medical attention. Safety is much more than applying a few rules to a work area. Safety is something that needs to be a part of your job, using good judgment and common sense every day. Safety is your responsibility. All the rules in the world won't do any good without your cooperation. It takes a commitment on everyone's part. Pedestrians, equipment operators, management, supervision, everyone. Take that responsibility and make your workplace and work habits as safe as they can possibly be, and it'll pay big dividends. Thank you.
Regardless of the type of electric material handling equipment you use, such as forklifts, pallet jacks, rider pallet jacks, walkie stackers, personal carts, or others, one thing is assured, and that's charging the batteries. In this program, we want to emphasize that each equipment and battery manufacturer has its own specific maintenance and operating procedures, and these should be followed at all times. Your company has specific rules and procedures, and these should be followed. The information in this program has been taken from a variety of sources, a variety of manufacturers, and information used by many companies with excellent maintenance practices. It's a review of the basics of charging batteries, regardless of the type of equipment used. However, it's up to each individual to follow your company's rules and procedures when charging batteries. Okay, let's begin the program by reviewing some basic tips for handling industrial equipment batteries. The first rule is to always wear personal protective equipment, which includes rubber apron, gloves, boots, and face-eye protection when handling, checking, filling, charging, or repairing batteries. Electrolyte used in the batteries is a mixture of sulfuric acid and water and is quite caustic and can easily burn your skin. Keep open flames away from batteries and never try to check the electrolyte level with a cigarette lighter or match. Use a flashlight or adequate lighting and do not smoke or create sparks near batteries. The space between the underside of the cover and the top of the electrolyte in the cell usually contains hydrogen-oxygen mixture, which is explosive when ignited. Make sure you charge batteries only in those areas approved for battery charging. Be prepared for an electrolyte spill and have adequate water available to flush your skin or other affected area with water. Volumes of water applied quickly and continuously will prevent serious injury to the skin. Quick medical attention is necessary to assure proper care and treatment. Splashes to the eyes can be avoided by wearing proper eye-face protection. However, if electrolyte is splashed into the eyes, wash the eyes with water for 15 minutes and get immediate medical attention. Spills should be cleaned up immediately by using a strong neutralizer, such as baking soda. The baking soda will neutralize the acid and make it safe to clean or flush from the floor or other areas. When changing or repairing plugs or receptacles that are connected to the charging equipment, be sure to shut the power off. This will prevent a short circuit and arcing of an electrical spark. Arcing can cause an explosion and fire. When mixing acid to prepare electrolyte, always pour the acid slowly into the water and never pour water into the acid. If water is added to acid, it will not readily mix and will splash the acid due to the great differences in the specific gravity of the two liquids. Always store acid in plastic or glass containers. Always lift batteries with mechanical equipment such as a hoist, crane, or lift truck. Move batteries horizontally with power trucks, conveyors, or rollers. Make sure that hoist hooks, spreader bars, and other tools are of ample strength and properly installed. Cover top of batteries with a rubber mat or other insulating material to prevent external short circuits from chains or cables falling onto the top of the battery. Proper handling of batteries is essential to prevent injuries and to prevent battery damage or electrolyte spills. Make sure that charging plugs and receptacles are properly locked and all other connections tight, secure, and free from friction. A loose connection may mean sparking or arcing near highly explosive gas mixtures. Enclose all bare wires and bus bars in the battery room by wire guards, guardrails, or other means of isolation from general plant traffic. Any open high current transmission equipment is a possible hazard to you, other workers, and the equipment. Double check to make sure the charger being used matches the voltage and amperage of the equipment battery. Voltages and amperages are found on the equipment data plate and on the charger data plate. Before disconnecting or connecting batteries to a charger, make sure the charger is in the off position. If an attempt is made to do this while the charger is on, serious injury to you, the battery, and charger could result. Before charging, make sure the battery cells contain the correct amount of water. Charging batteries with a low water level might result in damage to the cells. Keep in mind that battery fumes are explosive, and to check the cells with a flashlight or other approved light. Before connecting the battery cable to the equipment's receptacle, make sure the key switch is off and all controls are in the off position and the brakes are locked. The battery cable must be fully connected to the equipment before it's used. If the plug is not making good contact, heat will weld the two parts of the battery connector together, making it difficult to remove and necessary to replace. Good battery terminal contact is essential not only for operation, but also for proper charging of the battery. The battery cover should be closed except when charging, then it must be left open. Disconnect the battery from the truck when doing maintenance and repair work on the motor or electrical system. Obviously, live current may cause arcing or short-circuiting. Never lay metal tools such as wrenches or other material on top of an open battery. Sparking and short-circuiting will occur and can quickly discharge the battery or may explode. Check batteries for cracks or leaks and repair them when detected. If batteries are not in use, they should be kept charged. A freshening charge of about 3 to 4 hours at the finish rate may be necessary if the specific gravities have fallen 30 points or more. When recharging a fully discharged battery, the starting rate may be 3 to 5 times higher than the finish charge rate indicated on the battery nameplate. The charge rate should taper down to the finish charge rate by the time the battery is 85% charged and may be even lower when fully charged. High on-charge temperatures or frequent need to add water are indications of overcharging. Be sure to follow the equipment manufacturer's instructions on proper battery charging. The top of the battery should be kept clean and dry. Keep vent caps in place during use and charging. Let's stop here a minute because there has been some question in the past about the practice of leaving vent caps on or off during charging. Many years ago, safety rules stated that vent caps must be left off during charging to help dissipate the heat during charging process. However, in the past 15 years or so, engineers and other safety professionals have stated that vent caps must remain on during charging. Most manufacturers today also state that vent caps should remain on during charging. Vent caps must be checked to make sure the vent holes are not plugged and are functioning properly. The vent caps dissipate heat during charging and allow small volumes of gas mixtures to escape. If the vent caps are left off, a large volume of hydrogen gas could escape and build up, creating a greater explosive hazard. It is clear, however, that battery compartment covers must remain open during charging. When batteries are not mounted on equipment, they should be placed in proper storage areas, but never stored directly on a cement floor. If necessary, place them on wooden pallets and store in a dry, moderately cool area. Lead-acid batteries will slowly self-discharge over a period of time due to their chemical makeup. If the self-charge is left uncontrolled, excessive sulfation can occur, which is difficult to reduce and may damage the plates. If a greasy film forms on the top of the batteries, this is acid and should be neutralized with a baking soda solution. Keep all batteries in a clean condition. Have we left anything out? How about the type of water you should use when filling the battery? The answer is to always use distilled water. The reason for this is simple. Distilled water removes impurities in the water. Using regular tap water in batteries causes these impurities to attach themselves to the battery plates during charging, or chemical action and can cause the battery to decrease its normal life expectancy. Use distilled or other approved water when filling batteries. Don't use tap water because it will cause the life of the battery to be decreased over time. Always follow your equipment manufacturer's recommendations. Some manufacturers recommend that when your battery is discharged 85%, it's time to get it recharged. Some manufacturers don't have a charge-discharge meter on their equipment. The moral of the story is to follow the manufacturer's recommendations. Equipment, battery, and charger manufacturer's instructions, combined with your company's policies and procedures, are the best sources of information for safety and long life of the equipment. If you're not sure about something, ask your supervisor. The job and the equipment you use is too important to be left to chances. Thank you.
Liquefied petroleum gas, commonly called LPG or LP gas, is a mixture of several hydrocarbon gases. Propane and butane, used separately or in mixtures, are the principal LP gases. Propane is the LP gas most widely used in the USA. Propane is a vapor at normal temperatures and atmospheric pressure. Your gas supplier converts propane to a liquid by a combination of compression and cooling, which greatly reduces space requirements. Approximately 270 gallons of vapor can be converted to 1 gallon of liquid. Moderate pressure holds the propane in liquid form until needed, and of course a pressure tank is necessary to maintain this pressure. Propane has been a common fuel in homes and businesses since the early 1920s. Today, propane is used extensively for forklifts operating in warehouses because propane's clean burning properties eliminate sludge, carbon, and gum deposits, resulting in lower maintenance and operation costs, as well as reducing harmful exhaust emissions. Without going into great detail, let's quickly review some of the basics of a propane dispensing tank. The dispenser is a complete system consisting of the fuel supply tank, hose coupling, and all fixtures necessary to complete the system. It's important that any person using the propane dispenser unit to transfer propane liquid into portable cylinders learn what inspections and preventative maintenance are required, and if you have any questions about the safety features of the system, be sure to ask your supervisor. This program is designed to provide basic safety knowledge of proper cylinder refueling operations by vehicle operators. The most important consideration is safety, so always follow your company's policies and procedures relating to refueling propane cylinders and other safety regulations recommended by the propane supplier or equipment manufacturer. The very first step is to make sure the cylinder is approved by the markings on the cylinder, such as DOT, ICC, or ASME nameplates. Inspect the cylinder to determine if there's any damage to the cylinder before filling, and never use the cylinder if damage or defects are found. A protective ring or housing is required on all approved cylinders to prevent physical damage to the valves. The next step is to make sure there are no open flames, sparks, or other sources of ignition near the refueling tank or area. Naturally, no smoking is allowed near the refueling area. The vehicle must be shut off during refueling, and it is recommended the forklift propane cylinder be removed from the vehicle during refueling. One important consideration when removing the cylinder is to lift safely. Lift safely to prevent a back injury, and also lifting properly to prevent damage to the cylinder. All propane cylinders should be considered under pressure, therefore should be handled in a safe manner to prevent damage. Let's now take a look at the refueling of a forklift propane cylinder from a dispensing unit. In addition to inspecting the cylinder for proper marking and identification, a check should be made to detect any gouges, dents, bulges, or other damage. Check for leaks. All seams and openings should be inspected. Check that the relief valve will discharge directly into the atmosphere and will not impinge on the tank, structural members, or adjacent objects. A protective cover should be installed on the piping to prevent entrance of moisture or debris into the relief valve. Always wear proper protective gloves and eye face protection as required by your company's safety regulations. Remove the protective plastic cap on the tank filler valve. Connect the hose coupling to the tank filler valve. Open the main liquid valve at the storage tank. Turn on the transfer pump. Open the valve on the tank to be filled. Slowly open the hose end valve no more than 2 turns. Check the entire system for leaks. Open the maximum liquid level outage valve approximately 1/4 turn until the gas starts to vent. Fill the tank until liquid vents from the outage valve. When liquid vents, there will be a visible cloud, and this indicates the cylinder is full. When liquid vents, close the hose end of the valve immediately. Shut off transfer pump and close the outage valve. A word of caution: do not overfill the tank. Adequate vapor space must be left in the tank to allow for expansion of the liquid. If overfilled, bleed off excess LP gas in a safe location. Close the valve on the tank if so equipped. Partially loosen the hose coupling at the tank filler valve and bleed off trapped liquid. When depressured, disconnect the hose coupling. Replace the protective plastic cap on the tank filler valve. Check that the outage gauge is closed tight. Close the main liquid valve at the storage tank and store the hose properly. Forklifts normally have another safety relief valve located behind the driver's seat on most equipment. In the event the tank is overfilled and expansion occurs, the cylinder safety valve would then vent the overfill. However, if that valve does not function properly, an addition safety relief valve on the forklift will allow the gas to escape. This points out the need for forklift operators to inspect the entire fuel system on the vehicle. Inspect fuel hoses, connections, and the safety relief valve for any sign of wear, damage, or leaks. Quite frequently, fuel connections from the cylinder to the forklift become loose and should be checked periodically to make sure they are properly tightened. Certainly there are many different systems, different types of cylinders, and other configurations of propane systems, but it's important that you follow the equipment manufacturer's recommendations, your propane supplier recommendations, and of course, your company's safety policies and procedures. Right now, let's take a look at some of the characteristics of propane to give you a better understanding of the liquid and vapor. As a liquid, propane is easily transported and stored, but requires special handling and safety procedures. Propane burns cleanly, has a high heat value, and a high octane number. Propane is not poisonous. Propane liquid is colorless and odorless in its natural state. A rotten egg odor is added to propane for your protection and to aid in detection. You should always be able to smell this odor if a small amount of vapor is vented into the air. Propane liquid is extremely volatile and will vaporize quickly if spilled. Propane liquid leaking into the atmosphere can often be detected by a white fog caused by freezing of moisture in the air. Propane vapor is heavier than air and can accumulate in low spots. Escaping propane could lead to one or more of the following incidents. Number 1, fire due to burning of the gas. Number 2, explosion due to ignition of the combustible mixture of gas and air in a confined space. Number 3, asphyxiation due to lack of oxygen. Number 4, freeze burn from direct contact of propane liquid with the skin. Where escaping gas is encountered, all possible sources of ignition must be considered and eliminated or controlled. Do not remain in a propane-rich atmosphere for any prolonged length of time for the following reasons. Number 1, propane vapors are non-toxic, but they can reduce the oxygen content in a vapor cloud or enclosed space. Number 2, in an atmosphere of pure propane vapor, a person would rapidly become unconscious and die in several minutes if not removed from this atmosphere. Oxygen starvation often develops slowly, and the victim is generally unaware that anything is wrong until it's too late. Direct contact with propane liquid produces rapid freezing of skin tissue because of the high rate of heat transferred. This freezing causes a chemical burn very similar to frostbite. Gloves which will not absorb propane liquid should be used when handling propane. The wearing of clothing which will repel or partially absorb liquid is the best way to avoid exposure to your skin from propane liquid. Immediately remove any clothing which has been saturated with propane liquid to reduce the extent and severity of skin burns. Safety glasses and a full face shield are recommended when filling propane tanks and cylinders due to the same exposure as your skin. If you need or want more information regarding propane, consult your company's Material Safety Data Sheet for propane. This MSDS provides additional information on the hazardous ingredients, physical data, fire and explosion hazards, health hazard data, reactivity data, spill or leak procedures, special protection information, and any special precautions.
As a review, let's quickly list some of the basics when handling propane. First of all, it's flammable and can explode if the proper mixture of air and vapor is ignited by an ignition source. Propane can cause chemical burns, similar to frostbite, so always wear proper clothing and personal protective equipment. When using a filling tank, make sure you know and understand all the safety features and manufacturer's instructions and have been properly trained for this job. When filling cylinders, make sure there is no damage or leaks in the cylinder, and it is an approved type cylinder or tank. Be sure to open the vapor valve when filling the tank so you'll know when the tank is full. A white fog or cloud from the tank indicates the tank is full. Do not overfill any propane cylinder to allow for expansion. Be sure to inspect the fuel lines, safety relief valves, and the fuel systems of your equipment for leaks and damage. When handling cylinders, use proper safe lifting techniques to prevent back injuries and safe handling to prevent damage to the cylinders. The most important aspect of propane handling and refueling is to follow your company's policies and procedures. Each company is unique, with different systems and operating rules. If you want or need more information on propane, ask your supervisor for the MSDS or Material Safety Data Sheets. Proper training and a good safety attitude will go a long way in making your job and the handling of propane much safer.
The Walkie Stacker model forklift is designed for a person to operate the truck while walking, not riding the equipment. Unlike the rider forklifts or counterbalanced equipment that are designed for heavier loads, the Walkie Stackers are designed for less demanding loads and shorter travel distances. Quite often, this equipment is called a straddle truck, as it straddles the load. Don't let the names confuse you. Walkie Stacker, truck, or straddle truck means the same thing. As with any equipment, you must be trained to operate the equipment, and you must be authorized by your company before you operate the Walkie Stacker. The Walkie Stacker is easy and safe to operate if you follow the rules. If you fail to follow the rules, this equipment can be dangerous. The red button is the safety reversing switch, which automatically reverses the direction of the Walkie Stacker should the handle contact the operator or a fixture, wall, or other obstruction. It's a safety feature to keep a person from being crushed against a wall or other object. You must perform a daily inspection at the beginning of your shift, before you operate the equipment. This inspection should be thorough. Don't give the Walkie Stacker a quick once-over. It's important to provide a thorough inspection. Basically, there are two parts to the inspection. First, with the key in the off position, and secondly, with the key on and the battery engaged. With the key off, check to see if the forks are located in place and the correct working width is set. Check the wheels for cracks and gouges. Make sure the battery plates are in place and secured. Pull the handle down and make sure it snaps back to the vertical position when released. Check all chains and cables to make sure they aren't loose, frayed, or otherwise damaged. The take-up wheel should be free of binding. Check for leaks in the hydraulic system. Of course, make sure the battery is properly charged and in serviceable condition. With the key in the on or engaged position, make sure the horn works. Check all operational controls, such as the raising, lowering, and tilting functions. Make sure they are all operating properly. Check the safety reversing mechanism. Check the brakes. They should work with the handle in the vertical and horizontal positions. Make sure the battery disconnect switch is functioning. You already know that the only way to operate any equipment is the safe way. For the Walkie Stacker trucks, the same rule applies. The basic safe operating position for the Walkie Stacker is shown here. Stand close enough to the truck so you have proper control, but don't stand too close. Standing too close can result in the wheels of the truck running over feet or legs, causing serious injury to the operator. Keep a safe and practical distance from the equipment. There are different methods of slowing down and braking the truck. Pushing the handle all the way down is one method. Pushing the handle all the way up is another. The throttle twist grips can also control braking. While traveling forward, twisting the grips into reverse also stops the truck. This is known as plugging. The rear wheel performs the walkie-stacker steering. Rear steering allows the operator to maneuver the machinery in tight spaces. Of course, rear steering usually takes a bit more time to learn and become proficient at. Pushing the handle to the right steers the truck to the right, and pushing the handle to the left steers the truck to the left. Make sure you fully understand how to steer the walkie-stacker safely before you operate. The walkie-stacker operates on the straddle principle. This means the load is straddled by outriggers. It's the same principle as when lifting a box. Your legs straddle the load and acts as the balancing agent. A data plate is mounted on every walkie-stacker and should be located near the power handle. The data plate lists the load capacity of the truck as well as other vital information. The load capacity is determined by the truck's own physical weight and based on a load center standard of 24 inches. The load center distance is measured from the load bracket to the center of the load. A standard industrial pallet is 48 inches by 42 inches. The stringer is generally the 48-inch measurement. Half of 48 is 24. This is the basis for all load capacity measurement. It can be stated another way, a 24-inch load center. Another determination is based on the extended load center rule. This rule states that for every 12 inches the actual load center increases, the load capacity will decrease by 1,000 pounds. The center of gravity, or COG, is a balance point of a given object. For the walkie-stacker, the center falls here. For a loaded walkie-stacker, there is a center of gravity that would fall here, given the mast is aligned vertical and the forks are in a horizontal position. This is called a combined center of gravity. When operating your truck, you need to know where this combined center of gravity falls in order to maintain stability. To fully understand the center of gravity on stability, let's discuss the stability triangle as it applies to straddle trucks or walkie-stackers. The combined center of gravity is affected by the movement of the truck or load. As you pick up a load, the combined center of gravity will shift forward. As you tilt the forks back, this shifts the combined center of gravity back. Turning the truck to the right or left also affects the combined center of gravity by shifting it to the right or left. This movement is based on centrifugal force, shifting to the opposite direction of the turn. The closer the combined center of gravity gets to the triangle lines, the less stable the truck becomes. If moved outside the lines, the truck will tip over. Another important feature of the mechanics or engineering principle is as the forks are raised, the combined center of gravity is raised also, which lowers the stability factor. Be aware that the triangle narrows the higher the load is raised. This is called pyramiding, so keep the load close to the ground when moving and raise the load only when absolutely necessary to complete the job. What is the most dangerous maneuver any operator can make with the straddle truck? Going too fast? Turning corners too fast? Raising a load too high? Well, these are dangerous maneuvers, but to answer the question correctly, the most dangerous maneuver any operator can make is to make a turn with a raised load. If you have knowledge of the center of gravity, the combined center of gravity, pyramiding, and the stability triangle, you can fully understand why turning with a raised load is so dangerous. When carrying a load with your truck, don't lower the load all the way, as the outriggers can upset the load. Keep the load above the outriggers. When working near a loading dock, be extra cautious. Never drive close to the edge of the dock. This could cause a major accident. Be aware of where the wheels of the truck are at all times. When loading material onto a truck, make sure the dock plate is properly installed and secure. Debris on the floor can cause the walkie stacker to skid or lose control. If you fully understand the capabilities and limitations of your truck and apply the proper operating procedures and safety rules, you'll be a professional, and your job will be much easier and, of course, much safer. Thank you.